Hi everyone, I'm Levi. I'm going to be the interviewer for today, and I'm going to be interviewing these two wonderful ladies over here. I'll let them give you a quick intro about themselves, their names, what they're studying, area of expertise, kind of thing, and then we'll get started with answering some questions. So hand over.
Audrey. All right. Hi, my name is Audrey. I'm a PhD student in my shameless fourth year, and I am studying Australian wattles. So they're all the green plants that you can see at the moment with yellow flowers. So yeah, I'm a plant physiologist, and I study native plants.
I'm Layla. I'm from the Faculty of School of Medicine, and I'm doing in fourth year PhD as well, part time as well as working. And yes, I've been both a part time and a full time student, and I've been with the university for this my 8th year as well. So PhD, yeah, trying to finish up.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So
we're not going to leave.
No.
So we don't have anyone afraid of commitment in this room. Is basically
No.
what we're getting at. So, with that being said, and realizing that everyone here basically has a very, very full plate, I'm going to start with the first question because I think it links in really well with that. The first question we have is about procrastination.
Ooh.
So this person says, I'm great at procrastination. Do you have any tips on how I can keep myself on track with my PhD?
Yeah. Well, actually, I watched a really interesting TED talk that stayed with me from now, and I wish I saw it in my first year, but I only just came across it now. And one of the concepts they spoke about on procrastination was they said, do it badly. And it sounds like quite an interesting concept, but I've actually adopted this and I found it works quite well, is if you take the pressure away from doing something perfectly, and I found I am a perfectionist about what I do, and I'll agonize over something over so much, and it wastes time, and we don't have a lot of time, even though we think we do. There's a bit of an illusion there. So telling yourself, I'll just do it, and I'll do it however it is, not only gives yourself more time for editing and to rework what you have, but it gets something down on the page without that pressure. And I found for me that just, yeah, it helps with procrastination.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, procrastination is the doom and gloom of every student. And I know what I'm talking about because I'm here today instead of, yeah, you know. Anyway.
On that note, I'd also just like to say I was chatting with Audrey just before this as well. And she said to me, it's amazing how much other stuff I get done apart from my PhD. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's the beauty of procrastination. I end up doing everything except for what you're supposed to be doing.
A lot of things to do. So building on what Leila just talked about, the first thing about procrastination is to look at why you are procrastinating. And it can be perfectionism, like Leila mentioned, but it can also be a lot of other things. Anxiety, some other mental illness, unfortunately, burnout, fear of failure, and you can even look into fear of success and all sorts of other things. So it's hard, but take a good look at why you procrastinate. What are you avoiding? What feelings is that are raised by this avoidance? And this way we can go to the solution that works for what you're doing. And also, the reason why you procrastinate will not necessarily be the same all the time. So for some of my assignments, procrastination was just boredom. I didn't find the assignment challenging, and I happen to be a person that strives under that sort of pressure. Yeah. So I would need to make the assignment more interesting before I could get into it. And so that's a solution, but then some others, like possibly a thesis on which your whole degree is based, I think it's a lot more to do with fear and so on. And so that's another solution that you need to find for that. And finally, for the burnout, Procrastination has also been my friend in those terms. I was working too much, working too hard, exhausting myself, and I was procrastinating more and more and more. And all that was just a signal that I needed to just stop and take time off so I could rest and come back with strength. So look at the reasons and then go to the solution.
Yeah. And I think it's hard as well with a PhD. You've got this looming thesis, and it seems like such a big thing that you have to do, and it is. But it's very hard for our brains to break it down into small things. So we get overwhelmed by the overall, you've got this massive task to do, that sometimes getting a start, it just feels like, oh, like I'm already tired about it before I've even begun it. So I find like anxiety definitely plays into that, and just changing your perspective of how you look at the tasks that you have at hand. Like sometimes don't think about, I have to write a thesis, I have to write a paper, I have to write a chapter. Break it down. Try to make it small. Have your goals start off as small, doable, and achievable, and reward yourself for that. So, if you're writing, tell yourself, I'll write 1 page today. You're going to be able to write 1 page today. And then you actually doing the tasks, you might actually end up writing 3 pages that day. So trying to, as well as motivate yourself, but get something started. So I find once you do start the task, the ball rolls, but that procrastination is that massive step between the beginning, actually getting started. I'd also like to say on this point, like if you are really struggling, the university has CAP services, and they deal with this a lot with students who come in and don't know how to handle procrastination. And they can work with you on different techniques as well. If you're still struggling, if our tips haven't worked, you can definitely take it to them. They're experts. They understand how.
There's help out there with CAPS. They have private sessions. They have workshops. You can register online for the free unit on project management for HDR students, and that helps you break down your PhD project into those small steps.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things out there, and you will get help.
Yeah, that's really great to know that those support options are there, because I don't think it's talked about too much. You know what I mean? It's sort of like the info's there if you dig for it.
Yeah, you do have to dig
and
do that for yourself.
Yeah. I want to touch on so a couple of things you guys mentioned about breaking down tasks into smaller chunks, rewarding yourself, and all that. And I think that kind of comes under sort of managing your workload and sort of breaking it down so that you stay on top of it. We have another question that kind of connects in with that whole idea of managing workload, right? So this question is, I'd like some top tips to manage work-life balance.
Ooh,
right? We've sort of started like scratching the surface of that one. Okay. So for this person, they say, I study full-time, work part-time, and have a young family. I find if my part-time job is manageable, all is okay. So there's a stable block that they can work around, right? But when my job extends into my research time and things start blending, that's difficult. So the question is, how can we keep those things?
Well, if I can just say, you're a hero. Whoever wrote this question, we're doing PhDs and we don't have families to necessarily look after. I only have a dog, so I'm not sure if counts. So really good on you for taking that on. And work-life balance is a problem for everyone these days, wherever you work. So that's a tough one. I would try and see if you can delegate some things out to someone else at work, but also at home. I'm not sure of the gender of the person asking the question, but if you're a woman and you still do all the cleaning, for example, well, that's got to stop somehow. So try to find maybe some delegation so that you can give priority to your family, your job, and your PhD, and the rest is sort of off,
Yeah, I think when you're doing a PhD, you have to have an understanding that your life won't stop for your PhD, that it continues on, and that this can be difficult because you're dealing with this already. A PhD is a full-time thing, and then you've got this other life to keep going. I think it's important to know what support services there are out there. If you do struggle financially, if you are struggling mentally on some level, health-wise, any of these things, to know where to get the help when there are those issues that come up. But
when you do have there's a number of groups for parents that are doing PhDs. I think there's one on Facebook, there's a Twitter hashtag or something like that. And so often you don't have time to, connect in person with people. These online groups can offer a great deal of support, even if it's just venting your frustration. There are a lot of PhD students that are parents and struggle with these issues. So you can register with these groups and hopefully get a bit of at least moral support.
Yeah.
It's also helpful to know that the university is supportive in the sense that if you had to defer from your degree, you can. I think you can take it's up to a year. You can defer if you needed to get things on track. You can discuss with your supervisor about having time off if you needed it, and just there are certain things that they can do. You can get extensions on your PhD as well. So it's something I found a lot of people weren't clear about how much they could extend or under what circumstances they could extend. And if you're having trouble managing your PhD and your life, an extension is a great fallback that you can have to say, okay, I'm going to need a bit more time because I've got all these other things that I'm dealing with as well. So familiarizing yourself with the policy and what you can do in terms of being flexible is definitely something to help with management.
Yeah, so don't be too hard on yourself.
Yeah, life happens.
Yeah, that's for sure. And we're both here in our fourth year, and a lot of things happened, and we're still here, and we may not just leave yet.
Yeah.
So
extending, I think.
And so I think that's a big part of, I guess, management that you guys have just touched on there, which I don't think a lot of people think about in that way. Like, I think the common thing, including for me, is think about management in terms of, I've got to break down this task, I've got to be on top of this, and I've got to plan my time like that. But the other crucial factor is managing yourself and prioritizing how much of yourself you can spread across these tasks, even after they're broken down, right? So being able to look at your plate and kind of go, I can't chew off that chunk right now.
Yeah.
I need to extend is also...
And not feel guilty.
Yeah, that's right. That's taking responsibility as well and taking control and making it work for you. So I think that's not feeling guilty about that is very important.
I think it also ties into procrastination as well, because you might find you are losing time or not managing yourself as well as you could. And about being self-aware, but also if you are struggling with something, talking to someone, finding out different methods. Like, we're all trying to learn how to research, how to do this. So we're not supposed to know all these things from straight off the bat. So definitely talking to people, definitely being open with your supervisor and letting them know what your commitments are as well and how to balance that. Maybe there are some days you can work from home if you have a family, and that's okay, and things like that.
I'd say get in touch with people that are in the same situation as you, and if your kids can get along, then you can share play dates, and one day looks after all the kids while the others are having quality time on their PhDs, and then you take turns like this.
Well, that was definitely something I struggled with, was the fact that you sign up for a PhD yourself, but you don't do it alone. I feel like you do rely on these other supports, be it your family, your friends, other support networks within the uni. I sort of was a bit stubborn that I wanted to do it on my own, and I thought, it's my obligation. I signed myself up for this. If my mum didn't sign herself up for it, no one else did, so I have to do these things on my own. But then there's times in life where you can't manage everything. You have to be realistic about it, and you have to forgive yourself to a certain an extent for needing to ask for help and getting it.
I think so. Touched on a couple things there as well that will lead us into our next question. So one thing you guys mentioned was sort of in managing yourself and your tasks, discussing things with your supervisor. And I think being able to do that means being able to invest in and build that relationship with your supervisor as well. So focusing in on that part of that, I've got a couple of questions that relate to supervisors and possibly even mentors outside of them, right? So I'll ask the question relating to mentorship in general.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So this person says, what is the role of a mentor? I'd like some mentoring that is outside the official supervision provided by my supervisors, especially as none of my supervisors are in the same health field as me, so I don't get access to contextual support.
Yeah, mentoring is sometimes just left on the side, but it's quite a nice addition to your supervision. It can be really, really useful, but you probably have a lot of work to do first, defining what you want, what your goal is. So in this case, it looks like it's getting access to information and or a network that is closer to your field. So you can, define your goal towards there, but other people might have other goals. Certainly when I looked into mentoring, I had that idea that it had to be a woman. And, I'm not going to go all feminist right now, but the pay gap is real.
Yeah.
The gender gap is really something that we struggle with every day. And in academia, as I say, we are quite lucky. So I always had in mind, that a successful woman could be a good mentoring. So that was my personal thought about it. But whatever it is that you want, you need to define that first. And then the question of who will be your mentor becomes a bit clearer. You can make a list of people and try to contact them to see if they're interested.
Yeah, I definitely think when you're seeking a mentor, it's you look for qualities that I always like to find out what's their drive and their purpose, like their passion for what they're doing, and then I see if it lines up with my values and what I like, because then I'm more likely to have, I guess, similar decisions or similar wants in life as well. Mentorship is, I'd say, hugely important, and I didn't really understand it when I first started. When someone said, "Yeah, a mentor is great to have," and now having had a mentor and experienced that, you really see how much you do get out of it, and it's not having someone who can tell you ABC, this is what you have to do in your life, and they're going to write your life story for you. It's basically having someone who's been there, done that, who can kind of shed a bit of light and guide you and provide insight into different careers, and to even be a motivator for you as well, and to encourage you to do things. But
I think it can be quite practical too. In addition to that, you can meet with your mentor, discuss your goals, and then perhaps set on one of these goals and decide together what the next step is. So this way, next time you see your mentor, you would have tried to do the action you agreed on, and you can report back on how it went, reevaluate your goal, and start all over again. So you can also add that sort of formal layer to it with an important next step. What's the one thing you can do until we meet next time that will get you closer to your goal?
Yeah, asking as many questions as you possibly can. And you might find you have 100 different mentors for different things in your life, or you have one that is your go-to that you trust and you have that good rapport and relationship with.
Now, to find a mentor, so often it happens by chance, to be honest. You go somewhere and you meet someone, and then things happen. And you can also try and see the more formal programs. The university has one with alumni and with industry partners. So if you hop on the website, you can register to that and possibly find the allocated mentor like this. And then one last thing, actually, that I would say is to try and be a mentor yourself, to try and make that evolve for you. So I know the HSC students, sometimes there's programs and you can become a mentor for a high school student. You can be a mentor for an Aboriginal student at uni, or all sorts of other programs like this. And so being a mentor yourself can make your relationship with your other mentors a bit more interesting.
And I guess it could also help in doing what you guys said before, right? Which is identify for yourself what you want in a mentor.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're doing it yourself, you can kind of go, no, I like this, and this works, and I want this for myself.
Yeah.
From a mentor. So
Yeah.
you could do that.
I think with mentoring as well, a misconception is sometimes people expect the mentor to just dish out these, you know, sound bites. These things for like, this is how you should live your life. This is this and this. You have to know how to be a good mentee as well. You have to know. You have to put in the work as well to show them like that. You know, this is the direction you want to go into. This is the research you've done. This is as well, because if you don't have questions for them and you don't have direction for them, they won't know where to guide you, and you're not going to get that directional that you need.
So I guess it's like the relationship goes both ways then,
right?
On that note, so this kind of links into our next question, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So this may potentially go to a little bit of a dark place. I think we're at that point now where it's okay.
We know each other. We're comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. This question, this person says, I have a mentor who is a senior academic, but not directly in my field. I'm not sure it's working well for either party. It would be great to understand what I could gain and how to get the best out of this relationship. So for me, that kind of says a little bit of a tenuous, strained relationship. It's hard to sort of get through it. It might just
be that you're not clear about your goals. And
they don't know.
And they don't know. They're sort of, they're waiting for you to say, I'm thinking about this, and I was thinking I could do this. And that might be just it. If you Google stuff, you'll find useful forms to use, meeting agendas, meeting minutes, and it sounds horribly admin.
Yeah.
But
everywhere does it though.
I swear, if after a meeting, even with your supervisor, you just write everything down, and you just pack it up, and you're like, oh yes, so my next step is this, and this is what we're going to do. Might just need a bit of formalization.
But also, I think if you find it's not working, because I think it's like a relationship, you have to have good communication both ways. And if you feel like it's not naturally progressing anywhere, and you're ticking the boxes for being a good mentee with having direction, asking questions, and they don't know. It could be they don't know. It could be maybe which I think is more likely, like in their experience, it might be outside of that. So then what you might have to do is either bounce off them, ask them, do they know who might be able to answer this question, or do they have any recommendations of who you can go to? Bounce off them, maybe find another connection, or completely thank them for their time, keep in touch with them, keep that network on LinkedIn, be polite, and then look for other mentors, go to networking events, do some more research about what you want and what type of mentor you want as well, and then continue the search, because I don't think you're pretty lucky if you find someone that you mesh with completely and then their career goals and all their advice and everything works. Sometimes I think you may even need more than one mentor for a bunch of different things, because all those people have different life experience to share from all different things. So you get more of a broad idea rather than just take the advice or the guidance of one person, seek it from many.
That's a really good point. Because I was kind of thinking, because Audrey and I were kind of talking about this a little bit beforehand, and kind of I'd said something to the effect of, I remember listening to this podcast where when it comes to sort of dealing with tenuous and sometimes strained moments in relationships, including in this sort of context, all you can really do is sort of take ownership and control of yourself and tidy up your side of the street, and you can't really do that for the other person, right? So what I'm hearing from everything you guys are saying is basically really practical tips on how to take control of things that you can do for yourself, right? And so before we move off
mentoring
before we move off from mentoring, like if someone's doing all those things and maybe they're still feeling a little bit emotionally like, oh, this is really hard, do you have any tips for people on how to, we've kind of touched on it a little bit.
So they're still feeling a bit lost, even though they've had some mentorship and I think that's when you have to have a bit of self-reflection,
yeah.
introspection, sort of think about what you really want, what your values are, what direction you want to head in, and have a little bit more grounding for where you want to go, and use these mentors as like to ask questions about what certain things are like, certain, I think it's ask yourself a lot of questions as well. It sounds like if you're in that position that you might not know what you want, and that's okay. And you might want to jump into a completely different field. You might seek a mentor that doesn't even have to do anything as to what you do. Is not from your discipline. That's completely okay.
Well, depending on that problematic relationship, there must still be room for you to sit in front of them and say, I have a feeling it's been a bit unproductive or sort of disappointing maybe. What do you think? Are you feeling the same way?
That's actually a really good practical tip, actually.
I mean, you do have to have that confidence and possibly a good relation. Well, a good. I mean, the person, you feel like the person will be respected.
Yeah.
But if you can be honest, people will always like honest conversations.
Even people that mentored me had mentors themselves, so that tells you that everyone's kind of a bit lost and everyone's still looking for direction. So I don't think you should ever feel like you have to have a definite, finite answer. Complete everything is wrapped up in one package. Leave it a little bit, open. Be open and be excited about that. There's a bit of discovery there, and you might fall into things and meet different people through networking. You just got to be open to the opportunities, open to try things, and
kind of go
have fun with it.
Look after yourself in the process.
We're starting out. It's it's this discovery.
Yeah,
we need
I
to
love
embrace.
that. That's beautiful. I love that.
Cool.
So on the note of looking after ourselves through the process and everything, our final question is about isolation and loneliness within the HDR process. So how can we handle that? So that's going to be our last thing for the day.
That's a tough one. I think it helps to know that everyone feels this way in every time, even the most confident. Like I feel like I'm pretty social and confident most of the days, and I felt like this as well. And it's the nature of it. You're working on your little project, and you get in this little bubble, or you might be part of a small research group, and everything's very niche and like this. So. And there's a big workload, so it is hard to branch out. But I will say, if you're on campus, there are like a lot of, even off campus, there's a lot of committees, societies, things to get involved in that you can socially meet. Networking events are great for meeting people. Be open to that. Be open to attend all these things. And if you find you're off campus and there isn't something like this that you can find, start something. Like all of these projects, all these committees, all these groups and social networks have started with one person going, hey, this is what we need here. You can start that, and I guarantee you that it'll snowball because a lot of people feel the same way and have a lot to gain from building these networks.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. I would say don't let it rot. Take action. The longer you wait, the more the isolation will become some really bad obstacle in your project. So, but at the same time, you have to be patient because finding a solution might take a while. There's obviously all these events on campus and so on. So if you're lucky enough to have that, you can go for it. There's hanging out in your lunchroom, in your building. There's the school seminars. There's, can I mention, and I'll plug in here, the PLAs. The PLAs from the library will always be keen to have a chat with you and try to find solutions.
That's true.
So I'm particularly empathetic to students that are off campus. So either on a satellite campus, I'm in Camden myself, and also to students that are distance students, so not even on campus. So I know that we're very, and the library, to be honest, the whole library is very conscious of that and trying to support students out there. And so when we organize events for Camden, for example, we always try to include Narrabri. And no one knows that we have a campus in Narrabri, but we do. And Narrabri is a 9-hour drive away. So there's a lot of people that don't have access to what we have here. So raise your voice, contact someone about this. There's technological solutions now that we can use to plug you in, just like we're doing for this webinar. My big advice as well is join Twitter. Just do it. Go on Twitter, get an account, use it for your research work. Follow people in your field. A lot of academics are on Twitter. That's where academics hang out, I swear. A lot of us are introverts, so love it, behind our computers, and off we go. I have received the most touching encouragement from people, strangers on Twitter, and nothing from my research group. So I can tell you all about that in another topic. But Twitter is full of good people. You could post an update that says, I'm struggling with writing today. And then suddenly people pop up and say, oh, well, have you tried, the shut up and write? Have you tried this and that? And it's, well, some days are like this, and you just move on, and tomorrow is another day. Also hang out with your friends.
Yeah, make time for that.
Just don't necessarily go for PhD students because it doesn't give you a break. If you don't have friends, and I know a lot of international students struggle with that, make new ones. It's an urgent task in your project. By all means, find new friends, get onto a gym, student society, public lecture, volunteer for an organization you like. I don't know, dance class, anything really. Just get in touch with some people. For me, it was my dog. I bumped into another dog owner, and now we're besties. So
I think if you are struggling though with being really lonely and it's starting to get into like a depressive phase and it's not enhancing your life and everything, you're just stuck in a rut, I think that's when you do need to speak to someone, because there might be some things you need to deal with as well. And that's why CAPs are great. Another plug.
Yes.
Great for just getting some venting. Just get your thoughts out. That's the socially, like, what's really great about you making connections and not feeling lonely is having that interaction as well. So being able to have someone to talk to, especially someone who is objective party, is nice as well.
Understanding.
I think keep yourself healthy, keep your mental health together. That's more important than any of this. And if you don't keep yourself healthy, you're not going to be able to finish. So you prioritize that.
Yeah.
But be open to opportunities, and if you feel like there aren't any, there are. But if you feel like there aren't any, start creating some.
And I think that's a beautiful note to end on as well. I think that kind of links back to what we said before with prioritizing, managing yourself, and there's no shame in asking for an extension. So it's that whole thing of like, keep yourself number one, because without number one, there's no number two. You know what I mean? So that's we're at that point. All right. So I think we'll finish it off on that note. As Sarah has said in the chat, the next Quick Bites is going to be on social media, and there's a link there to sign up for it. And thanks for joining us. This has been Audrey, Layla, and me, Levi, as the interviewer.
Levi, for being such a good host.
Thanks. Take a bow, and we're done.
Good luck,
All right.
guys.
See you guys. Thanks for joining.
Keep in touch.
Bye.